If you're over 50, working your butt off, and still can't seem to get ahead financially, there is probably one big reason, and it's got nothing to do with how much you make or how smart you are. It is about how you think about money, your money mindset. So today I am sharing the 3 money mindset shifts that helped me stop playing small and start building real wealth, the kind that buys freedom, not just stuff. And the last one might ruffle a few feathers because it goes against what nearly everyone believes, but it is crucial for getting ahead. Hi, I'm Tess. 2 years ago, I left a career that looked good on paper, but left me completely burned out. I had to rebuild my life, and part of that was rewiring how I thought about money. So I made it my mission to really understand money, and it has changed my life and my net worth. So before we get into the first shift, which is something that admittedly I struggle with still, and you probably do too, because almost everybody does. But it is important to understand where our money mindset comes from. Most of it isn't logical, it is emotional. And it is shaped by how we were raised, what we saw our parents do, and what we heard about money growing up. There's a great book about this actually called The Psychology of Money that talks about how every decision we make financially is rooted in our personal backgrounds. I'll link it below if you want to check it out, but the gist is your money beliefs were formed long before you ever earned a paycheck. And that is where the first money mindset shift comes in, because for a lot of us, that early conditioning shows up as scarcity. So the first money mindset shift I made was from scarcity to possibility. Now, I know most people say from scarcity to abundance, but that just seems, I don't know, a little woo-woo for me, and like, what does that even mean? So possibility to me feels more grounded and more possible. And I'll explain a little bit more about what I mean by that in a minute. So I grew up in a very middle class, but very frugal household. My mom is Asian, my dad grew up poor, so frugality was basically a family value. My mom actually made my clothes when I was little until I got really embarrassed about it around the 2nd grade. But we clipped coupons every week, and I heard the words, "We can't afford it," nearly every time I asked for something. And this goes both ways, because it is good that they weren't reckless with money, but that idea of never having enough money got stuck in my brain. So even when I started making decent money, I still thought I didn't have enough. I thought saving every penny was being responsible, but really I was just making decisions from fear, afraid that I'd wind up totally broke. The thing about a scarcity mindset is that it doesn't just vanish when your income goes up. You still worry, you still say no to yourself, because deep down, you still feel poor. So like so many people, I was terrified to leave my job at 54 and start my own business. And it took a lot of emotional and mental work to get me to a place where I trusted that I would be okay financially. But I did notice when that fear started popping up. And I started focusing on possibilities. So instead of asking, what if I lose everything? I started asking, what could I gain? And what I really wanted to gain that was so important to me was freedom. The freedom to live a life on my terms and escape the 9-to-5 grind. I began to trust myself, and I started telling myself, I'm smart and I can figure out how to make money. And eventually I got the confidence to leave that toxic job once and for all. Okay, now I'm going to give you an action step, because the mindset is the first thing, but you have to translate that into action. So this is going to be a very small one, don't worry. So your action step is to write down 3 things you really want, the ones that scarcity usually talks you out of. Then write down, what's one step I could take toward each of them, even if I don't feel completely ready. You don't have to act on it right now, but focusing your mind on possibilities instead of fear helps to shift your brain in the right direction. Now, the second money mindset shift was probably the hardest for me, but it is crucial if you really want to get ahead and build wealth. The second money mindset shift is going from fear of risk to faith in yourself. For most of my life, I was very risk averse. And, it kept me safe and stable, but it also kept me small. So that one decision to finally take a risk ended up changing more than I expected. Not just my career, but my whole relationship with money. I spent years talking myself out of things that I wanted. So like changing jobs or starting something new or investing in myself because I thought I was gonna lose all my money. And I used to think that people who took big risks knew something that I didn't or had a big bank account to fall back on, but they don't. They just trust that if it doesn't work, they'll figure it out. For me, the scariest leap was leaving my steady paycheck and starting my own business at 54. I didn't have this huge financial cushion or a foolproof plan. I did have an emergency fund, which I slowly built. I also had a lot of fear and this voice that said, you can't keep living like this, because I was miserable in my job. But then I realized I'm 54. I've had a lot of setbacks in my life, and I've always managed to figure them out. And you have too. You've done it 100 times. You just forget when fear gets loud. And I realized, and this is one of the perks of getting older, I didn't have to know exactly how it would work out. I just had to believe that I could figure it out as I went. And that was a big turning point for me. Here's what I realized. Staying stuck is risky too. You just don't realize it because you're in it. It's that slow kind of risk that ends up stealing years off of your life. Taking a chance on yourself isn't about being fearless. It's about being brave while you're scared. If it scares and excites you, that's usually a good sign. It actually reminds me of a line from Winnie the Pooh where Piglet says, "Supposing a tree fell down, Pooh, when we were underneath it." "Supposing it didn't," said Pooh after careful thought. Piglet was comforted by this. That's really it, right? Most of our fears will never actually happen, but we live like they already have. It's funny, I thought this shift was more about career and confidence, but once I started trusting myself, it carried over onto how I handled money. I stopped being scared about making mistakes and actually started learning about money, which I'm going to talk about a little bit more in shift number 3. If you want to grow your money, you have to get a little bit comfortable with taking some risks. Not foolish risks, but smart, informed risks. Okay, so here's your action step. Think of one area of your life where fear of failure or uncertainty keeps you frozen. Then ask yourself, what would trusting myself here look like? Actually visualize yourself taking that step with confidence. Even imagining it helps to rewire what you think is possible. And now this is the one that might ruffle a few feathers because it kind of goes against the grain, but the third money mindset shift is moving from spending to impress to investing in yourself. So I used to do what most people do. You get your paycheck, you pay your bills, and then you spend the rest on stuff you don't actually need. Now, a lot of people think that being rich means having a designer bag or driving a fancy car. But the thing is, a lot of those people have no money in their bank accounts because they spend all their money on things that make them look rich. But to me, being rich isn't the car or the kitchen remodel. It's about being able to wake up without panic and having the freedom to live a life on my terms. I used to know nothing about finance or investing. I had an old 401k, but I had no idea what was in it, and I thought the NASDAQ was a car race. But before I left my job, I decided to get smart about finance. I started reading books, I listened to podcasts, and I even spent $1,300 on a stock market course and an options trading course. And while I ultimately decided I didn't have the stomach for options trading, I am still so glad I took the course because it taught me so much about how the stock market worked. And that knowledge gave me the confidence to fire my financial advisor and start managing my own investments. And I've doubled my portfolio. And I did the same with YouTube. I spent money on courses that would teach me how to grow faster. Now, the old me would have said, I can't spend on courses, that is a lot of money. But now I realize it is an investment that will teach me how to earn more. And I get it, you don't want to live like a monk. I mean, I'm not saying to do that. And I still spend on things that I truly enjoy, like massages and travel. But even then, I don't go absolutely crazy. I don't go to the 5-star spa and the luxury hotel because I'm not trying to impress anybody on Instagram. But a lot of times we spend money on things that don't really bring us joy for more than a few minutes. So just be selective about what you spend your money on. Ask yourself, do you want to look rich or be rich? Warren Buffett still drives an 11-year-old Cadillac and lives in the same home in Omaha that he has since 1958. And he's a billionaire. When I stopped trying to look like I had money and started learning how to actually make it work for me, that is when things finally clicked. Okay, so now your action step is to take a look at your last few big purchases and then ask yourself, did this bring me long-term joy, growth, or confidence? Or was it more about how it looked to other people? Then pick one expense you can scale back on this month and redirect it towards something that actually brings you freedom. So like savings or debt payoff or something that builds your confidence and skills. This is what reinvention looks like. It's not one big leap. It's small, tiny choices that move you toward freedom instead of fear. And I have something very exciting to announce. I am building a completely free Reinvention starter kit because so many women have reached out to me and said that they really want to start over and reinvent themselves, but they don't know how. This guide walks you through the steps to start fresh and build the life you really want. It'll be out soon, so make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it, and I'll put it in the description too when it's ready. And if you want to know how I got the motivation and the courage to leave my 9-to-5 once and for all, watch this video next, which goes through all the steps that I took. You absolutely can reinvent yourself and change your life. Why? Because you're a bad mama jamma. I'll see you in the next video.